Imagine losing everything not once, but twice. Imagine your own creation being lost, your team betraying you, and your dreams get crushed overnight. Most people would quit. But Walt Disney? He turned failure into the greatest comeback in history. From driving ambulances in World War I to a bankrupt animator to the mastermind behind the biggest entertainment empire on Earth, Disney. This is the insane true story of how one man and one small mouse changed the world forever. Born on December 5, 1901 in Chicago, Illinois, Walt Disney grew up in a family of Irish and German descent, but life was far from magical. His family struggled financially, constantly moving before finally settling in Missouri. Even as a child, Walt wasn't just a dreamer, he was a creator. He spent hours sketching, turning every blank page into a masterpiece. While attending McKinley High School in Chicago, he honed his craft, taking art classes and even selling his drawings to make extra money. His passion didn't stop there. He also developed a love for photography and cartooning. And behind every great artist, a believer. His mother, Flora, was his biggest supporter, encouraging his artistic ambitions. At 16 years old, Walt was eager to serve when the U.S. entered World War I in 1917. But there was a problem. He was too young, underweight, and had poor vision. The Army rejected him. But Walt wasn't one to give up. Determined to contribute, he found a way, joining the American Red Cross as an ambulance driver in France in 1919. He wasn't just on the battlefield, he documented the war through sketches, filling his notebook with the sights and stories of war-torn landscapes. After returning to the U.S. in 1919, Walt faced another battle, finding a job. At just 18 years old, he had no formal training, no animation experience, and no clear path forward. With limited options, he landed in Kansas City, Missouri, struggling to make ends meet. But persistence was in his DNA. In 1920, he finally got a break, securing a job as an illustrator at Pesman Rubin Art Studio, a small advertising agency. It wasn't animation, but it was a stepping stone to something bigger, something that would change entertainment forever. At Pesman Rubin Art Studio, Walt Disney wasn't just drawing, he was learning. He created print ads, local business promotions, and visual storytelling pieces, sharpening his skills in composition and creativity. But more than anything, he learned the grind, the pressure of deadlines, the challenge of capturing attention, and the power of visual storytelling. This was where he truly honed his work ethic. But Walt had bigger dreams. And in 1922, he took a bold leap, leaving the studio to start his own animation company, Laugh-O-Gram Studio. Walt wanted to revolutionize animation. His plan? Create short cartoons for local theaters, funny, engaging, and innovative. He hired a team of talented animators. With his team, Walt started producing animated fairy tales, including an early version of Cinderella, 1922, all with basic animation techniques and endless creativity. But there was one problem: money. Laugh-O-Gram faced brutal financial struggles. Walt couldn't secure enough funding, and the studio was bleeding money. Theaters weren't interested in his work, and distribution was a nightmare. By 1923, it was over. The studio went bankrupt, forcing Walt to shut it down. For many, this would have been the end. But for Walt, it was just the beginning. He had learned the hard truths of business, animation, and storytelling. And he wasn't about to give up. 1923. Walt Disney had just lost everything. His first studio, Laugh-O-Gram, had gone bankrupt. He had no money, no business, and no clear future. But he had one thing left: a dream. So, with just a few dollars in his pocket, Walt moved to Hollywood to take one last shot at success. Teaming up with his brother Roy Disney, Walt launched the Disney Brothers Studio. With Roy handling the business and Walt focusing on animation, they started building something new. Their first breakthrough? The Alice Comedies. This 1923 film series mixed live action with animation, featuring a real girl interacting with cartoons, a groundbreaking technique at the time. The Alice Comedies gave Walt a foothold in the industry, teaching him the importance of storytelling and business. But the biggest moment was yet to come. In 1927, Walt struck a deal with Universal Pictures to create Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Oswald was a massive hit, becoming one of the first mainstream animated characters, but success came at a cost. In 1928, Walt faced his biggest betrayal. Charles Mintz, the distributor handling Oswald, stole the character, and even poached most of Walt's animators. Walt had lost everything again, But instead of giving up, he created something even bigger. With his trusted animator Iwerks, Walt raced to create a new character. Inspired by a pet mouse he once had, he sketched an idea: a small, cheerful, determined mouse. Mickey Mouse was born. In 1928, Walt released Plane Crazy, Mickey's first cartoon. But it was Steamboat Willie that changed history. Premiering on November 18, 1928, Steamboat Willie was the first cartoon with synchronized sound. The animation was perfectly timed to the music, creating an experience no one had ever seen before. Audiences went wild. Mickey Mouse became an instant cultural phenomenon. From failure and betrayal to creating an icon, Walt had proven one thing: dreams don't die, they just get bigger. Mickey Mouse wasn't just a character, it was a phenomenon. With Steamboat Willie's groundbreaking success, Walt knew it was time to think bigger. As Mickey's popularity skyrocketed, Disney Brothers Studio was officially rebranded as the Walt Disney Studio, solidifying Walt's creative leadership. His brother Roy Disney remained the business mastermind, allowing Walt to push animation to new heights. But Mickey Mouse was just the beginning. Walt wasn't satisfied with black and white cartoons. In 1935, he introduced the Band Concert, the first color Mickey Mouse cartoon, dazzling audiences with vivid Technicolor. Mickey's fame expanded beyond animation with comic strips, making him a household name across the world. Walt wanted more than just characters. He wanted emotion, artistry, and music. After some time, he entered Silly Symphonies, a series of musical short films that became experimental playgrounds for new animation techniques. From these experiments came some of Disney's most beloved characters, proving that animation was evolving into a true art form. But Walt's vision wasn't limited to short films. In the early 1930s, no one believed a full-length animated film could work. Studios called it Disney's folly. Walt ignored the critics. He spent years crafting a feature-length masterpiece, using animation like never before to tell a deep, emotional story. 1937. The world saw Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. It wasn't just a movie, it was history in the making. The film introduced breathtaking Technicolor, stunning visuals, and a narrative that made audiences laugh, cry, and believe. It became a record-breaking success, proving that animation wasn't just entertainment, it was cinema. Snow White forever changed Hollywood, and the Walt Disney Studio became the undisputed leader in animation. With Snow White's massive success, Walt kept pushing boundaries. With animation like Pinocchio, 1940, a darker, richer tale with incredible storytelling. Fantasia, 1940, a visual and musical masterpiece that redefined animation. And Dumbo, 1941, a heartwarming, budget-friendly hit that kept the studio afloat. Walt Disney received numerous awards and honors throughout his career. When it comes to winning Oscars, no one even comes close to Walt Disney. 22 Academy Awards, 59 nominations, a record that still stands to this day. From revolutionizing animation to creating the first ever feature-length animated film, Walt didn't just change Hollywood, he redefined it. But the early 1940s weren't just tough, they were brutal. World War II disrupted the film industry, and Disney's finances suffered. Then came an even bigger crisis, the 1941 animators' strike. Disney's artists, overworked and underpaid, demanded better wages and conditions. Tensions exploded. The strike nearly tore the studio apart. Walt, feeling betrayed and heartbroken, struggled to rebuild trust with his team. The damage was done. The studio survived, but the scars of the strike and war would linger for years. The early 1940s were a mix of brilliance and struggle for Walt Disney. World War II hammered the film industry, forcing the Walt Disney Studio into financial strain. But even in the darkest times, Walt never stopped innovating. And by the 1950s, he was ready to take his biggest risk yet: Disneyland. He imagined a different kind of amusement park, one that wasn't dirty, unorganized, or just for kids. Walt wanted a place where families could step into stories, where every detail was carefully crafted to feel real. No one had ever built anything like this, and most people thought it was impossible. By 1954, Walt had one mission: bring Disneyland to life. But it wouldn't be easy. Building Disneyland wasn't cheap. The estimated cost was $17 million, a fortune at the time. Disney bet everything. He poured in his own money, brought in outside investors, and used TV profits to finance the dream. The construction was a logistical miracle. Modular techniques sped up building. New crowd control strategies ensured smooth park flow. Themed lands like Adventureland, Fantasyland, and Tomorrowland were designed with insane attention to detail. And the craziest part? The entire park was built in just over a year. Walt knew how to hype up an audience. In 1954, he launched the Disneyland TV show, giving people a behind-the-scenes look at the park's progress. Millions tuned in, turning Disneyland into the most anticipated attraction in history. With every dollar on the line and the world watching, Walt was about to open the first ever theme park of its kind. Then come the date July 17, 1955, the day Walt Disney had been working toward for years, the day the world would finally see Disneyland. It was supposed to be magical. It was supposed to be perfect. Instead, chaos. The hype was off the charts. Thousands of people stormed the gates, way more than expected. Traffic was backed up for miles. Some guests climbed fences just to get in. The summer heat was unbearable and water fountains weren't working, thanks to a last-minute plumber strike. Food ran out within hours. Rides broke down. Fresh asphalt melted under the sun, causing women's high heels to sink into the pavement. It was so chaotic that press dubbed it Black Sunday. But even as things fell apart, Walt stepped forward with a smile and delivered one of the most legendary speeches of his career. To all who come to this happy place, welcome. Disneyland is your land. Despite the opening day disaster, something incredible happened. People loved Disneyland. Visitors were mesmerized by the themed lands and storybook attractions. Word spread fast, and by the end of year one, 3.6 million guests had walked through the gates. Disneyland became an instant phenomenon. By the 1960s, Walt Disney had built far more than a theme park. He had transformed entertainment from films to TV to real-life magic. And the time passes, the Disney keep growing, but then the sad movement arrived. December 15, 1966, the day the world lost a legend. Walt Disney, the man who turned dreams into reality, was gone at just 65 years old, taken by lung cancer before he could see his biggest project, Walt Disney World, come to life. After Walt's passing, his brother Roy O. Disney stepped in, determined to complete his brother's dream. He renamed the project from Disney World to Walt Disney World, a tribute to the man who started it all. On October 1, 1971, Walt Disney World officially opened its gates, bringing Walt's final vision to life, and just months later, Roy passed away too. The last man of the Disney founding duo was gone, but the company, unstoppable. The company kept growing years by year, from a small animation studio to one of the most powerful brands on the planet. And today, Disney dominates in movies and TV like Marvel, Star Wars, Pixar, and more. And theme parks expanding across the US, Paris, Tokyo, Shanghai, and Hong Kong. So that was the story of the Disney founder. Hope you enjoyed the video. There's another story you need to hear, how Sam Altman and OpenAI built one of the most revolutionary platforms in history, ChatGPT. Click the video on screen now to watch.